So, today we start our third lecture in the frame of the course, introductory course of theoretical phonetics and grammar. And it means that we're going to speak about grammar as a branch of linguistics. So before that, we spoke about the language of system, and we've discussed the aspect, the hypothesis of the language as the theoretical phonetics and generally the scope of that discipline. Today we move to grammar and we have two more lectures devoted to that field. It means that today we speak in general terms about the history of grammar as the discipline of the theoretical science, and of course we move to our outcome. So today, generally, as always, I'm looking at something to learn. Yes, and to start our lecture not only efficiently, but also useful and effective imply or implement if you like it. Well, so what are we going to discuss? The first part, grammar as science and academic discipline, types of grammar as the subject matter of the theoretical grammar and method of grammatical analysis. So nothing difficult seems to be, but of course, as far as it is theoretical course, and we're not speaking here about some practical aspects of grammar, but we start with the definition itself and the origin, the etymology of the word. So the term grammar, it's a Greek word, grammatike, and it derived so it is formed of two parts, gram, something written, and tike, techne, art. So in other terms, it's a right of the art of writing. So grammatike. Well, if we have a quick look into the historical development of the word grammar, which is composed, as far as you can see, of two words, so then you will understand why mostly we speak at school, we speak about writing, yes, and so about grammar of writing, and only then we speak about the speech, which is generally considered to be stylistics, because stylistics analyzes already the production of grammar and lexicology, of course, together combined, so the usage of the language. But in fact, grammar also refers to both fields and originates in, yes, this first meaning of writing. Well, so the first change in meaning, so it's not just writing, as we have mentioned about, happened in 1580, when it is fixed in the dictionaries already, and so it meant and was used to the rules of language, of any language. Yeah, so in general terms we speak today. Well, so it's not just writing, but generally the rules of usage. It's all about word building and sentence building. Okay, so then also additionally, grammary, so this is the word which appeared and fixed in the Dark Ages around the 15th century, when so the flourishing of occult knowledge was okay welcomed, and so generally the study in private lessons, how they looked like. These were occult meeting sessions, and among, so during practicing some occult, I don't know, action. So it looked like also using some rules. Yes, so that is why the word grammary was applied to denote such practice. And it denoted, in general terms, learning because occult practices, they were not only about some magic, yeah, things, or about some dark magics things. It was also about reading, about writing, about declaiming some pieces of poetry and pieces of prose and so on and so forth. And it looked like that in private houses, people met, usually men, maybe some women selected, but it was not that popular at that time. And they, so only for, of course, people of high class. And so it, those homes, maisons, uh, there were galleries. It was very, of course, expensive to have that, so that is why we speak only about high-class people that could practice occult knowledge. And that is why we speak about grammar here, not only in respect of occult sciences, but also practices, sorry, but also in respect of knowledge, obtaining knowledge. Well, so then in 1720, there was fixed the word glamour, which now has transformed into what we know, glamour, fashion, and so on. And so first it was fixed in Scottish dictionaries and denoted magic or enchantment. And in the modern version, it's something like this, enchantment by fashion, by fashion pieces of art. Okay, so now, knowing that all, we can just sum up that the word grammar, in respect of its etymology, uh, and in respect of our course, it has the connection to such meanings as doing grammar, knowing about grammar, because doing grammar it's writing, the art of writing, so the general practicing. Knowing about grammar, it's something about theoretical already aspects of grammar, because to describe, generally to get oriented, to structure knowledge about grammar, and so on. And also additional meanings that can appear with the flow of time and the development of that word. So, for example, glamour, which also corresponds to grammar. Yes, is this one, Grammarly, because it partially covers some magic plus knowledge, yeah, and glamour already just entrancement by something, not only by language. Okay, so usually when we speak about the theoretical grammar, of course we should speak about practical as well, because it's one side of that field of knowledge. Theoretical grammar generally covers and discovers and describes the situation in the language in respect of grammar. And practical grammar, it's already definite particular rules that we use. They are prescribed to the users of the language in order to practically use the language. Yeah. So not just observation of the language, but usage. So of course, these are two different practices, but one cannot exclude the other, because in order to have some practical grammar, you should, of course, observe the language in general terms, so describe it, in fact, yes, so generally perceive the knowledge about its structure somehow, and then elaborate the rules which should be implemented by the users. Well, so here you can see the in general terms the definition of both grammars, and here you see give practical grammar gives practical rules of the use of linguistic structures, um, different sizes, yes, starting with the words or even more information, because if we speak about grammar, the minimum unit is the morpheme here, as it has the meaning, form and function, because we cannot speak about something that doesn't have the meaning. It's not about grammar. So grammar, it's as we mentioned, the rules of using and using in combination. This usage covers the combination of what is meant with the formal characteristics of it. So that is why we don't speak here about the phoneme. The phoneme is, as you know, the aspect and the object of phonetics, theoretical and practical as well. Okay, so then if we speak about morpheme, yeah, to continue. So then in respect of the practical grammar, we speak about the rules of combining these morphemes, for example, root morphemes or the affixal morphemes, and the place of them, and the possibility and distribution of morphemes within the units, and so on and so forth. So theoretical grammar, as far as you can see, gives an analysis of those structures. It cannot prescribe anything or whatever. It just analyzes the state of the situation in the language different. So theoretical grammar can also cover, for example, historical grammar, because comparative grammar, uh, so these grammars, these types of grammars, they can be practical and theoretical as well. But within the theoretical grammar, it is like the general field, general observation, and the effort to explain why it can be possible in this language or in the other. Okay, so that is why we speak about existing different schools, different approaches, and so on and so forth, because theoretical grammar is about explanation, analysis, and explanation. So you can have your own explanations, your own vision, so you can lay out it in some paper or even a manual, I don't know, maybe some investigation or study, and then your theory will be maybe recognized, because any theory should be okay, should have some place for doubt, and it means that it is when we speak about the theoretical approach. Once we cannot doubt something or check something, so then it's not a scientific already considered to be, for example, that concerns um, Freud and his theories. Is very famous in psychoanalysis and also in languages as well. Some of aspects of his theory can be applied, for example, in stylistics, very often to explain the motifs of the author, of the reader, and so on and so forth. But his theory is not considered to be scientific. Yes, so he's very, very popular and very often citated, but unfortunately his theories cannot be checked or cannot be doubted for that reason. Yes, any theory should have some place for doubt, for discussion, then it is scientific. Okay, so that is for you to understand why we speak about so many theories and approaches to the language. And so general practical grammars is if to speak about the connection, and I mentioned about that neither of the grammars, those grammars that we have mentioned exist, yes, separately. That is because according to the theoretical approach, we prescribe, because we have some vision of the language, we organize the units in some structure as scientists, yeah, and then we present some prescription of what is correct in language, what is, yes, this set of rules that describe and help us to use the language correctly. So it, and that is why when you have the practical grammar, usually when people teach, for example, the students privately, because in the frame of university and some academic courses, usually they are based on some already made courses, or the professor, teacher develops the course on the basis of known sources. But then when you teach, very often it happens that the teacher takes something from the internet or whatever, and it's not correct, because your knowledge, the system of knowledge that you give to the students, should be based on some structure, you see, so on some logics, because then you can check the student, and the student can be sure that the teacher is doing correctly. Yes, because not that it's the will of the teacher to correct in such manner, or to put this mark and point for the task, and not the other. The student should have also the rules to check the teacher. Yes, just vice versa. Both here in both directions, the rules should work. And that is why you should take some definite source for your teaching, you see? So it should be some definite author and so on and so forth. It's not that today one source, you don't know who wrote that, yes, where it appeared, just appeared on the internet as in made that it is good. So generally, when those manuals that we use in practical grammar, they're based on some standpoint, on some theoretical standpoint. Okay, so here it is. Any course of theoretical grammar today serves to describe the grammatical structure of language as a system. That is what we've discussed during the first lecture. And it means that each standpoint has some characteristics in general. So they should present, analyze according to their vision, the units of language, their meaning, and their function. So in three, well, so then to make the conclusion, theoretical grammar is descriptive grammar, and practical grammar prescriptive. Like doctors, here we have some prescription to use. So prescriptive and descriptive have already laid out. So here on the slide you can see more information for you to use during the preparation to um, the final test, and so on. Well, in few words, to sum up this slide, that we should differentiate the two grammars in respect of so the theoretical grammar being more up what, yes, standing over and describing, even the prescriptive grammar describing, yes, so analyzing, for example, comparing two schools and their vision of language in respect of grammar, and for example, prescriptive, it's a particular set of rules based on some theoretical approach. Yeah. Well, now, as far as we today speak in general terms about theoretical grammar, and in the frame of the academic course, we should touch upon the uh, general development of this branch of linguistics. So then we speak about different types of historical grammar as well. So we can speak about traditional grammar, generally it's prescriptive and non-structural descriptive grammars. Here we'll discuss during today's lecture what's the difference, because with the flow of time, the vision of the language has changed, the way it was viewed and perceived, and that is why it influenced the existence of different types of grammars. Then we speak about the flow will move into the 19th century about structural descriptive, and since the 20th century, already after the structuralism that appeared, we can speak about different types of grammar, inclusively transformational generative grammar, but not only. There is also the cognitive grammar nowadays with the development of cognitive sciences as well. Well, so then, so what we should start with, generally with the moving to the 19th century right now, because so generally we should speak about the 4th century before Christ era. But we speak about the 19th century because that is the time when it was discovered by the European scientists, and that is the starting point of the comparative historical grammar, and then it influenced the appearance of the structural grammar. And why that important also from the theoretical, not theoretical, but historical course of the English language, you know that so all the languages Indo-European group, they had some Indo-European, Proto-Indo-European language, which was the mother language for all of them, and then Sanskrit was developed, and so this is the first description of Sanskrit grammar. Just imagine, it was the 4th century before Christ era, and the European scientists they discovered it only in the 19th century, and then launching of the historical sciences, historical language, the history of languages appeared, and comparative as well. Yeah, so this historical method was applied, and scientists have discovered that all languages they have something in common, and not only proto languages that existed, but proto languages of different families of languages. Yeah, because Sanskrit and Proto-Indo-European language, these are the mother languages for all Indo-European group of languages within which we can notice and stratify other languages, group them, yes, together in families, smaller families, for example, like Germanic group of languages covering the German, the English, Norwegian, so on and so forth languages, yes, of the Nordic group of languages. Okay, so what is interesting here? That if we speak about the European languages and sciences and their development, so then in respect of grammar, theoretical grammar, we can start speaking around the 16th century. So the first effort to do that was somewhere there when Anini's grammar covers already morphology, syntax, and semantics. So this is the modern approach to the language description, and already stratifies the groups of words into 8 chapters, into 8 parts of speech. So it's difficult to imagine because in Europe it happened, uh, yes, it happened later. Okay. And so we can speak about, of course, not theoretical grammar here yet, because so general theoretical grammar, it is something modern that appeared only, yes, so as you can say, equivalent with in Western theory. It was the middle of the 20th century, just imagine, yeah? So, yes, generally, if it were discovered there, then yeah, we could have had a different maybe vision of, or maybe not vision, the face of science right now. Okay, so here it is. It was found the manuscript of Panini's grammar treatise from Kashmir, the 17th century. So it still wasn't found by the Europeans. Yeah, so we speak about generally and in which form we can obtain that grammar. And this exactly piece of grammar, which is in the libraries, in the museums, which is kept in the museums as an artifact, goes from the 17th century because, of course, from those ages, it's difficult to find something, but it was rewritten. Yes, for that reason, yes, we can speak here about that. Well, So in respect of the grammar development, we can speak here about different uh, periods and different geographic areas because uh, so everything depends on the science development where it was concentrated. So we start with ancient Greece when the first description of language in respect of grammar structure was given, and it concerned the Greek language, and then ancient Rome. So it was this system was applied to the Latin language description, and that is why we speak about such chronology. And here, within during that period of ancient Greece and ancient Rome, we speak about the application of the term itself, which denoted the whole apparatus of literary study, of course, not still the language. So we speak about rhetorics, about the formulas that are recommended to be used, and they were described. So these were the first steps to theoretical grammar. Okay, so what is interesting about traditional grammar, which was given and composed by Thrax? Uh, so it was ancient Greek grammar uh, based on the works of Dionysius, Thrax, Protagoras, Plato, and Aristotle. And it nicely described already the language in respect of the parts of speech and in respect of the differentiation of yes into differentiation of the language structures into the sentences. Of course, that term wasn't used at those times. These were logos, and the word itself, so which was the minimum considered to be those times considered to be the minimum unit of grammatical description. Nowadays, it's morpheme because it has meaning, as I mentioned, and form and function, and that is why we can speak about in respect of grammar as the minimum unit of grammatical representation, a grammatical system, in fact. So the sentence is defined notionally as expressing a complete thought. So nowadays nothing has changed since that time. That is why it's very important to yes to remember that today, if we speak about the theoretical grammar of the English language, of course it doesn't just based on the knowledge about the English language. No, it gives the knowledge about earlier formations and the development of sciences that led, yes, they have led to the results that we have right now. And then, of course, this will change because with the development of the theoretical thought, with the development of general sciences in the world, for example, genetics and so on, which give us uh, understanding, better and deep and profound understanding of how our brain works. That is why we speak about nowadays cognitive sciences and cognitive grammar, because they explain in respect of our brain functioning the way we have something in the language and in grammar as well. And as far as I'm one of the representatives of cognitive sciences, and so I practice cognitive uh, stylistics, but of course it is based on cognitive grammar as well, because this is inevitable. Yes, you should know grammar first, what is correct, what is good, what is prescribed, what is considered to be the basics of the language and its structures, and then you describe what is violated and why. Yeah. So, and give some explanation how it is possible, how, what is the purpose, for example, what are the intentions, what are the results. So many things you can describe here. And of course, when we speak about the division of the into the parts of speech within the grammar of the English language, it is based on those knowledge that were given by with respect to the Greek ancient Greek language then. from Greek to Latin, ancient Latin language, and then from Latin, which was predominant in sciences, in education, and in everything what concerned academic and style of life and education up to the 16th century in Europe. So for that reason, it's not a surprise, or there's no doubt that we should certainly know about Latin and Greek structures. So these are the first efforts and results of the word stratification in the here it is, you can see Latin language, but before that was in the Greek one. And yeah, so though this vision couldn't be applied to all the languages because different languages, they have their own peculiarities, and as we know, they are not similar, and their structures can be different. For example, synthetic and analytical. So at least in this respect, of course, there should be some changes, but nevertheless, this subdivision and stratification and general vision of the language in respect of stratification of the words into the parts of speech into some groups. So it is still is applicable in modern languages, yeah, and in modern theory. So, and everything goes, of course, from Greek. So then the first grammar that was written in Latin was proposed by Varro, and so what is the distinction interesting, yes, the distinction he offered, the distinction between derivation and inflection, that was very important for general description and vision of the structure of the language, and it means at those times the grammar, yeah. So he considered that in his vision, yes, point that we can speak about those words with case inflections. So then we speak about nouns and adjectives, because adjectives, they, as far as we speak not about the modern English language, which is analytical by form, but those times it was not those times, of course, the times of Latin language, old ancient Latin language. I mean, afterwards, yeah, with the development of usage of the English and popularity of it, starting with the 16th century as the national language. I mean, so this, of course, refers to fractional languages. Those are synthetic. It's about Greek, Latin, and English of those types. Yeah. Well, those with tense inflections, verbs. So it helped to find the logics. Yeah. So this division and vision into derivational and inflectional words, sorry, helped to generally find these logics, how to stratify the words. Yes. Okay, so then those with case and tense inflections are participles, and those with neither adverbs. So earlier, would refresh your memory that in earlier vision, participles, they were like separate group of words because of these logics. Yes, and nowadays, of course, a little bit the situation has changed. So the latent grammars of the present day are direct descendants of the works written by late grammarians, Frisson in particular, yeah. And their aim was to transfer as far as possible the grammatical system of Thrax grammar. That is okay, because that was one of the logic that considered to be the best, yeah, those days. So, and they tried to apply it to the Latin language, which of course was different from yes, other from Greek language. Okay, in the Middle Ages, again, just to refresh your memory, that grammar was the study of Latin, so it was only Latin language. But yes, after that, just in the period of Enlightenment, when there was the first vision offered by Arnaud and Lancelot, if you remember the French um, scholars that offered the vision of universals, that all languages have something in common. So, and then the national languages, that was the starting point of having a look at the national languages, not Latin, the Latin language in particular or exclusively. Yeah, and that was the period of when Kant mentioned that if I think, then I exist. And it concerned the national languages that you use and you think with your native language. And that it means that native languages should be described in more detail. And that was the starting point of generally the development of national languages, not only Latin. But the formulas, of course, to describe national languages, they were applied from Greek, Latin, and to the national languages. Okay, so Latin grammars in English. Um, so as it is mentioned okay, earlier than the 16th century, we can speak about this shift from Latin grammars to the English grammars. And the aim was to teach the English to read. So that was the fact, because it was not popular. So it was considered to be the language of common people, uneducated and so on. Because educated people, they used the Latin language, of course. Well, but English, because of the poets, writers, because of the dramatic, yes, I mean, the staging of some um, plays and so on and so forth in theaters. Well, and okay, lingua franca. So that period, yes, of Western Europe and in English as well, that is why we have a lot of French words in the English language because of that occupation of French, yes, Normandian invasion and the ruling period of them um, quite long from the 11th century to the 15th, and then, of course, it had a great influence into the language, on the language. Well, in the Renaissance, we can speak about widening linguistic horizons, to the attention to the living languages, not only to the dead ones, uh, which was the Latin one, yeah. Although the study of Greek and Latin grammars continued, so they were not the only languages of scholars uh, and academic fields, but also uh, they were interested. They were interesting for the scholars in respect of description and application to the national languages, and that is why this like abstract view, so theoretical view, was applied to those types of grammars. And of course, then we speak about maybe first steps to the theoretical disciplines. Okay, so then here it is. One of the earliest and most popular Latin grammars written in English, it was William Lilly's. So you see, so this uh, um, the transformation. First, it was only Latin. Then Latin was description of Latin was written in English. So English was like major language of the description. It's all about Latin still, but already in English. Well, and it was written in the 16th century. And then certainly we speak about the first English grammar. Finally, Robert Lowth, maybe one of the best known prescriptive, not descriptive yet. Of course, yes, we speak about the descriptive grammars as early as the, okay, so the first step, the 18th something, but generally in the 19th with, okay, Sanskrit, yes, that discovering that influenced greatly the minds of scientists, first in respect of comparative, yes, historical aspects, and then theoretical. Okay, so here it is, you can see. Uh, English describes through Latin, that is what I've mentioned you, and that is what we, of course, shouldn't forget. Uh, that is why still it is the great discussion about the cases in the English language, because we can't find, in fact, the opposition of formal opposition, though we express the meaning, but not with the help of form. So then how can we speak about the category of case if we don't have forms? Yes, we can express this with some structures of language, for example, the genitive case or the dative case or the accusative case, that these cases existed in Latin and, of course, in Greek languages, but they are absent in the English language. So the meaning exists, but we apply the grammatical structures, not the word structure. It is like phrase structure, you see. So then how can we speak about this category if, yes, we don't have it within the noun system? Well, so then the features of the prescriptive grammar, so you can see, just to sum up and move to the already our theoretical aspects. Oh, well, these are the features: patterning after Latin in classifying words into word classes and establishing grammatical categories. And that is why now we can observe in different prescriptive grammars different recommendations how to treat one and the same grammatical structure, for example, syntactical. That is why, because this application, this like frame that we use uh, from one language and put it like mask, yes, onto the other face, the other language. The face has peculiarities, yes, because it's individual, and the mask cannot just fit this face, you see, no face. And that is why we have some discrepancies in recommendations, how to treat, how to use, generally what it is. Just for example, yes, because in general terms you do not understand what I mean. So if we take my two grammars that were practical grammars that were my favorite ones when I was a student, these are Kaushanska and Gordon Krylova. So, and you can see there the difference. So some grammatical phenomena are described better in one source and others in the other. And so that is why I speak about two grammars, because they have different theoretical standpoints, and for that reason, so something is more clearer for me in one source and another topic in the other. So, for example, the topic, if to speak about the verbal system and its usage, everything about tenses, aspects, voice, mood, and so on. Yes, so this would be Golden Krylova, because very detailed explanation how to use, clear recommendations, what to do with this meaning, with that meaning, how to express it in English, how to translate it into English to render from our native language to the English language, and so on, and what are the peculiarities. Why, for example, concerning the verbal system, verbals, I wouldn't use the source of Gordon Krylov because it's very intricately presented, and yeah, really you should have good knowledge of English already to understand what is meant, you see. But when you just learn English and you use some practical grammar, of course you cannot understand because you don't have those knowledge. You're just starting to obtain them. Well, and then you can shift to, for example, Kaushanska. Well, then reliance on meaning and function in definitions. That is because we speak about not only words but sentences, and then we speak about the function. because we should differentiate whether it is a noun or the adjective. For example, classroom. Yes, class, it's a noun, and room is noun. But within this structure of the English language, it's important the place, the position, and the function. It performs the adjectival function. So, yes, we consider it to be attribute, for example, not the object or whatever. That is because we speak about not only meaning, but the function within the structures. So then approach to correctness. Any prescriptive grammar, it's about something uh, to use something about correctness, how to use correctly the language and so on. And I would, for example, recommend while I teach practical grammar, for example, to use full forms of words, not shortened or abbreviated, and to pronounce them correctly, also fully, not abbreviated. That is because if we have gathered for the practical course of grammar, so there is no abbreviation or some discrepancy or misunderstanding, ambiguity in the usage. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't that the student is gathering about this apostrophe s, whether it is the apostrophe s of the noun, or it is shortened it, or it's shortened has, or whatever it could be. No, it should be absolutely clear that it is or has, or it is apostrophe s because it is the genitive case, you see? And then in speech, when you go outside, yes, when you leave the room, you can use as you like, because pitch already, it's about improvisation and a lot of mistakes, and so the purpose is to shorten, to be abrupt, quick in transmitting our thought and idea to the other person, and to receive the reaction to what you'd like. And when you use full forms, I don't like this idea instead of I don't like. Yes, so then of course, so nobody will wait for you to express. They will consider you to be an annoying person. Yeah. So different purposes. So once we speak about practical grammar, it's about correctness. Here should be full forms. Everything should be correct because we have gathered to learn grammar, which is about correctness. You see? Okay. So if today we speak about theoretical grammars, then we speak about some theories and so on. Yes, and describe a historical approach and different types of grammars and so on. That is not, I can mispronounce words here, I can shorten, abbreviate them, and whatever, because it's not the purpose of today's lecture, for example, today's meeting, to speak about correctness. Here it is about the descriptive academic discipline. Yeah. Okay, and emphasis on writing rather than speech. That is why, yes, grammar traditionally, so it has preserved its original meaning, grammatike, to the art to write. Well, the non-structural descriptive grammar appears. So what is this? So it is so general vision of the parts of speech and presenting them and laying out uh, uh, about one language. For example, in our respect, it's about the English language, and it's about Henry Sweet, who wrote his New English Grammar, Logical and Historical, and he presented some ideas on what is in the English language, but without structure, without division into items like units, yes, or describing describing some structure of the language. Yeah, just a second. Um, so yes, here it is. We speak about similar prescriptivist, descriptivist using of meaning and function. So this was the first period when the combination of meaning and function was applicable to the language. Somehow logics, yes, organizing the elements and prescriptive grammars, but still not the units that were, yes, the structural approach. Then Otto Jesperson, a Danish linguist, developed the theory of grammar and grammar of the grammar of in the English language, he proposed three principles of classification. These are meaning, form, and function. That is what I mentioned. And nowadays, it is a must that you should consider three of these aspects in order to describe whatever you describe in the language. Yeah, and that is why the principle of the division into the unit, and that is why the third is considered to be a unit, yes, of grammar, because it has no meaning. Well, yeah, so then it somehow helps to organize, yes, the description of the language, because otherwise you don't have this understanding of basic principles uh, that are put into the uh, so generally base of your vision. So then you cannot describe and you cannot elaborate a theory. You cannot give your vision and understanding of. So generally, you cannot start analysis. Yes, without some strict principles. And then appearance of structuralism. So first structuralism, we can start speaking about as early as the 19th century, and now you will see the names that we should mention. But first of all, when we speak about structuralism, usually it is European and North American. By the way, North American structuralists, they deeply believed that they were the first, and Europe is something. They knew nothing about European sciences, and that they have that long history backwards. Yes, they consider that Americans, they are, of course, the pioneers in everything and in sciences as well. But okay, so with the development of transport system and the possibility to generally connect European scientists and exchange the ideas. They have found out that Europeans they have done a lot already in respect of sciences. Well, so then structuralism, European, somewhere around the 20s, of course, started earlier. We'll see in the 19th century with which ideas, but developed in the 20s, and in North America, 30s and 60s. Well, so what is generally the standpoint of the structuralism? So it was the reaction of the atomic approach. Yes, a new theory appeared in seeking the grasp linguistic event in the mutual interconnection and interdependence to understand and to describe language as a system. So I will explain you. So atomistic view, it is when we put into parts, yeah, separate everything, then we see some logics between these elements and organizes them in some structure which composes the system, so presents the logics of the system. So generally, what's the difference between threats division to the parts of speech, because it's also some stratification. In fact, the language earlier was perceived not indivisible. You see, so each step into uh, this elaboration of parts of speech and syntax and morphology, that was already a great step, you see. So into verbs and nouns first in Plato's theory, then Aristotle developed and proposed logos, the sentence, yeah, and then it was developed into grammars already, into the division to the parts of speech and syntactical structures. So nevertheless, the language is considered to be like a unit and indivisible. And now within the atomistic approach, within the structural approach, we can see and speak about not just that we compare the formal characteristics that some words are declinable, others are indeclinable. There are often we have some exceptions, for example, nouns that can be indeclinable, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't refer them to the nouns because they have some other characteristics, and this appearance of three aspect description of the unit helped to refer those nouns that are unchangeable and those that are changeable, for example, fruit, nothing changes, but it is a noun. And for example, a boxes, changeable noun, it's also a noun. So to refer them to one group because not only by formal characteristics, also the meaning is considered, yes, taken into consideration, and the function in the sentence. You see? So then these are two nouns. But structuralists, they mention that, okay, we have nouns, but we have prepositions, and they all have connected. They do not exist separately. It's not separate boxes from which we take the word and put into the sentence. No. So they are interrelated and interconnected, and they distinguish. So the existence of prepositions, they distinguish the existence of the nouns. That is because, so generally nouns, these are just words, but once we start using them, they need prepositions to be combined, for example, together. Yeah. So that is why these all words, they do not exist separately in separate boxes. These boxes, they are interconnected, interrelated, and they distinguish the value of each element. That is about the structuralism. Okay? So the first, when we speak about the language as a system, still not the word was applicable because it was like structure word was applicable. Baudouin de Courtenay, with his morpheme, the minimum unit meaningful of grammar, it is already based on this approach of three uh, folded description, meaning, form, and functions. But he was the first to speak about that. Fortunato then developed that idea, and then, of course, Ferdinand de Saussure, a Swiss linguist that offered already the term system, and he described and he differentiated, in fact, language and speech. That was a huge step in the development of general language disciplines, and theoretical grammar appeared here. Okay, the first, yes, we can speak here. Well, but Ferdinand de Saussure course of general linguistics, it was published after his death, and he never collected it in some theory. It was, I explained you already that these were his students uh, listening to his lectures and making notes. They collected those notes. They collected some pieces of paper on which something was written by Ferdinand de Saussure. And in 1914 or 13, I don't remember exactly, they published this famous and highly citated source and very important theoretical uh, vision of the language for all the linguists and, of course, philologists. Okay, so then American descriptive skill. Here we can speak about descriptivism and Franz Boas, linguist and anthropologist. Very also important to mention in respect of theoretical grammar, because here we can speak about the beginning of this generative grammar and so modern grammars, yeah, and cognitive grammars, because so the specificity of those American linguists was that they had tribes to, yes, and the languages, I mean, in America, North and South, uh, they tried to describe the languages of those tribes existing and living languages. Yeah, and of course they have some a lot of discoveries of ancient languages in, for example, South America, and they could compare things that languages have something in common, but also in different. And they presented the idea that the language, it is the vision of the world. So each separate language gives us different visions of the world. That is why we speak about mindset. Uh, so discrepancy between, for example, Europeans and the British people, and they are expressed in languages. And this the idea, this interest in, okay, so we have something here in brain in common structures, maybe given to a human being. Yes, some abilities, capabilities, capacity to cognite, but then each language, for some reason, have variations. Yes, variations of perceiving. For example, in one Eskimos language, we have 50 names of snow, 50 nominations of snow, while in English or Ukrainian only one. Snow and snow. So we can use adjectives to describe the type of snow, but for us it's snow. Okay, we understand. We don't need more. But so just imagine 50 words, because for Eskimos people it's important which type of snow today, because their life depends on that snow. So that is about our vision and perception according to some conditions of existence. And that is what was that is important, yeah, anthropologists, because they were investigating the civilization and development of a human being, and that influenced the theories. So, for example, Bloomfield, yeah, that represents a peer. Of course, it's so pioneer of cognitive general linguistics, starting from Humboldt, of course. In if we speak about the European tradition, it is the 19th century who expressed that the language, it's yes, the representation of the world. Well, but then continued, not continued, because these are different. As I mentioned, Americans, they consider that, okay, they were the first general in sciences. But then it appeared that it wasn't so. Yeah. Okay, so Bloomfield, he considered that we should pay attention only to the formal characteristics. So we should learn the forms. We shouldn't take the meaning. How can we take this meaning? Because it's here hidden. We don't know how to deal with this. Yeah. So it's behaviorist theory, and so general principles and approaches to yes, here in the focus, the division of formal methods, and for that reason, there were a lot of formal grammars that were launched at that period, and that gave the birth to the artificial intellect sciences. Yes, it is the middle of the 20th century, and that was all about that, you see. So these were the first, like everything is important, you should understand, you see. So each theory gives then um, so the development in linguistics in different aspects, and each of those aspects is important. For example, this approach so we understand that generally we cannot speak without meaning, but this approach to formal characteristics, and maybe in the focus of this theory, helped them to develop artificial sciences, you see. And yes, for example, the translations, so these translators, yeah, Google Translator and so on, they were so derived, developed from that approach. Okay, so then, yeah, there are characteristics that you can see of the North American structuralism. The language is observable. Yes, is observable speech, not knowledge. Yes, that is, I always pay attention to that. Language, it's okay, so it's just dictionary you take. You have fixed what you hear, but generally it's not knowledge. You see, so it's So speech, where we practice, where we compose knowledge, where we produce knowledge, and so on and so forth. And that's a little bit different from language. Yeah, with the help of language means. Okay, so descriptive grammar and so on. Let's draw a line. When we speak about theoretical grammar, we speak about generally grammar, and we try to describe what we have here in this field. And in this field, we have traditional grammar, so with reference to the historical grammars and early formation. Structural grammar, modern vision, yes, there's such a big gap between them because traditional grammar covers really huge period of human being development and language development as well. So many centuries. And that structural approach, which appeared, so it's like young, yes, what we can say, baby grammar, yes, because it has started and sprung in the 19th century. So then transformational generative grammar, it is okay, the second part of the 20th century, and grammar nearly that period, the transformational generative earlier a little bit, and then cognitive at once. Yes, as the opposition to this, because transformational generative grammar is about forms. We pay attention to the form and we organize, we analyze the formal characteristics of the speech, of the sentence, and so on. While cognitive, it's about processes that we have in our brain that facilitate the general speech, usage of language, generally these all categories and the way we stratify, classify, the way we organize our knowledge in our mind and then produce it and transmit it and generally keep this knowledge in our mind, how it's possible, and so on and so forth. It's about cognitive grammar. Within the traditional grammar, we speak about prescriptive, proscriptive. Prescriptive, you understand? Proscriptive, it's about other language, like English, in English, about the Latin language, you see? So it's like prescription and proscription, yeah, how to use it. Explanatory, the first attempt to describe and explain something. It started from the, of course, the practices, hermeneutic practices, when the texts were interpreting, for example, Bible. So a very classical example, it is the Bible that is interpreted, yeah, explained what is meant behind that legend, yeah, behind that recommendation. That is why also explanatory why, for example, we should use in this respect, not in the other respect. And historical, so generally describes the state and early formations, what we had, for example, in the ancient English, then in the Middle English and modern English, and so on. And everything is covered by theoretical grammar as well. Yes, because it gives the theories about that. So that is why it is called theoretical grammar. Well, the universal and particular grammars. Here it is also that we should pay attention um, uh, that there is discrepancy in terminology. And that also influences that we have, as scientists, as scholars, we have this problem because in different languages, because of the not similarity and that they generally are different, we can't find all the terms that correspond and used in some theories. For example, just to mention, yeah, in English, so general, a unique human ability to communicate with conventional signs. That is concerning language. And we have the term language in French, langage, in Italian, langaggio, I suppose. I'm not sure about pronunciation. And in Spanish. So I won't read it because I don't know the pronunciation, in fact, Spanish. But you see the same word is used. Then specific, a particular system of science. And here we speak about language again, while in French this is la langue. and Italian lingua. You see? So different term because different scope of meaning is covered. In English, you should always particularize what you mean. You mean language or you mean language? You see? So you mean language in general terms that we use language to speak. Yes. What about the language? Yeah. Which language should we use in our conference? And language in particular. Yes. So langage, it's like practice of using, and langue, because in French it's more specific. Yeah. It's more detailed usage. Langue, it's like language that we understand in English language, French language, and so on, like system of organized units, interrelated, interconnected with their function. Okay, so what else? Then, when we speak about theoretical grammar, we should understand that here it is also which theoretical grammar we mean. So all the time we start about something theoretical. You see, there's a lot of things to make the definition before you start your theory, because everybody should understand that you mean the same under the same word or the same term. And here we can speak about general linguistic and general grammar, particular general grammar, like grammar that exists in the world. Yes, there is such a discipline. It covers and describes and organizes and prescribes, for example, the usage of some languages. Then particular linguistics and particular grammar, for example, of the English language. So when we move to the English, here we can speak about theoretical grammar, for example, or practical grammar, or I don't know, descriptive grammar, and so on. Uh, yes, as well as other aspects of the language and disciplines and branches of linguistics, like phonology and lexicology. But theoretical grammar takes this position, maybe that is what I mentioned, that it covers everything, and practical, descriptive, comparative, and so on and so forth, because it gives the theory explanation about the state in this language. You see? So these theories, they can be describing or explaining some aspect, not everything in the English grammar, yes, in the English language, in respect of grammar. That is why it covers all aspects, yeah. Okay, so this we have discussed, but we haven't paid attention that descriptive grammars, they can be fundamental and can be theoretical, you see? And prescriptive, they can be pedagogical and applied. The pedagogical, it is how we should teach grammar. You see, there are some courses, the way you should teach, for example, tenses, the way you should explain the articles, and so on and so forth. So it's about teaching. And applied, it is just for users, the rules, how to use, yes, so generally, how to speak correctly and write correctly. Okay. And of course, if we speak about grammar, it's not to avoid stylistics, because it's also about grammar, but violation. Have a look. So it's of course we are taught how to write the sentence, how to use generally the space to present your sentences, ideas, and so on. And these should be lines. And if in respect of the English grammar, it should be from left to right. Yes, movement, but here you can see in different directions, whatever you like. And it's also about the theory, which explains, for example, formal representation, some arts already, yeah? So that is grammatical, art of writing, you see? There are different types of those writings we can apply. And I like it very much, especially this one, in respect of my uh, today's position. Okay, so then we move to the last slide. Um, well, we will sum up here. Uh, yes, we start with describing language in respect of different aspects. So, I mean that it's written the language of the system, yeah? Phonology, and today grammar, and of course lexicology. It's some definite different courses that you have, not concerning ours. But in respect of our today's lecture, we speak about the theoretical grammar, which, as far as you understand, it can cover everything, all aspects of the language in respect of its structure, grammatical and usage grammatical. And of course, here we deal with lots of theories because they all try to explain something, not everything. Yeah, it's impossible generally to explain everything, even uh, take into consideration that we speak about the system. Yeah, because language is considered to be an open system, and open systems they cannot be fully described. Never. So that is because mathematical rule. Well, so that is why I wish you to be efficient in your using the language. Yes, and understanding other people and expressing your thoughts and ideas. And so have a nice day. We have the seminar also, so that was now waiting for you after the break. See you. Oh, well, yeah, and stop recording.